Hey, how's it going? Welcome back. Enjoy the video. See you at the end.
Fulton Dwayne Ray versus Catherine Barrera Wheatley. It is petitioned to establish paternity and percussion and alternative liberal visitation. And according to the docket, this is a motion to increase visitation and set summer visitation, even though we're past summer, obviously. So, yeah. All right, this is a paternity case, but apparently paternity is not an issue, so we will be establishing paternity.
Paternity was entered in the agreed order on April the 23rd, 2024.
Okay.
And Ms. Roberts and I have both agreed to the holiday schedule, which will be Thanksgiving for the father from Wednesday at 6 p.m. to Friday at 6 p.m. and for the mother from Friday at 6 p.m. to Sunday at 6 p.m. This Thanksgiving, it'll alternate next year. Christmas schedule will be from the day after school until noon. December the 25th, the schedule will be with the mother. And from the day of December the 25th until noon, until noon on January the 1st will be with the father for purposes of the Christmas vacation, which is relatively standard, but we wanted to announce that so the court was aware that we do have the holiday schedule worked out.
All right.
What we're here for today, Judge, is a motion to increase visitation and to set summer visitation or I will say holiday visitation. Mr. Ray has been denied visitation routinely by the mother. Specifically in our first agreed order, the parties agreed and counsel entered an order wherein there was a provision in paragraph 4 of the April 23rd order where the parties will work together for the father to have additional time as the parties can agree, including when the child is in child care and the father is available for visitation. Father has repeatedly requested to have visitation on his off days and times when he's away from work and the child is in child care, and the mother has denied that visitation. Additionally, the court's going to hear information from City Officer Aiden Hollis today regarding an incident at the second visitation wherein the mother refused to turn over the child on the Friday afternoon at 6 p.m. when the father was to have the child. So Your Honor will hear today that Mr. Ray has had, prior to the events of this case beginning and requesting paternity be set and child visitation be set, Mr. Ray had a 50-50 care and custody of the minor child. When the petition was filed, the mother immediately revoked that, and since that time has only allowed him to have every other weekend, has accused him of being a drug user and abuser. I will tell the court that he did test positive for THC on a drug screen. He can explain that to Your Honor. But since that time, Mr. Ray has been clean on all drug screens. Ms. Roberts filed a motion for a nail follicle, which Your Honor knows goes back about 8 months, and Mr. Ray passed that with flying colors. I believe she filed it on July the 22nd, and by the time our office got it mailed to him, he turned around and went and had the test done, and we got the results by the end of August. About 30 days after the motion was filed and before it was even heard, he went ahead and had it taken and passed that test. I believe Your Honor's got that in your file. So drugs should not be an issue any longer. Miss Wheatley is currently, as I understand it, residing with another gentleman and has started using her maiden name, I say maiden name, it's her middle name, as the child's last name on all the child's registration records. She's refusing to use the last name Ray. She is referring to the boyfriend as I'm neglecting to remember his first name at this time, but it's Daddy in his name, and then she's referring to Mr. Ray as Daddy Colton, which is not proper. So we're asking the court to address that today. We're asking the court to increase his visitation time significantly. We're asking for at least every other week. He's tried to make arrangements with Miss Wheatley, and she has been completely unreasonable in her failing to allow him to have additional time. He is 50% the parent and should be allowed to exercise that time, Your Honor.
Ms. Roberts?
Your Honor, the parties do have one child together. Child is Ellie. My client has been, since birth, the primary residential parent of the child. She's performed all the parenting duties. Mr. Ray, in his petition, is replete with inaccuracies. He did not have a 50-50 residential schedule with the child. He's not ever been self-supporting. I think he lives in people's basement, maybe works Uber or does something, doesn't maintain steady employment. He is the first that alleged drug use. My client immediately went and obtained a drug test and showed that she was negative. We asked that he do that. It took him several months or weeks before he would do it, and then it came back hot that he's used it. That's been the problem. He's an avid drug user, and not only is it just illegal drugs, he does these, again, why people do it, but these Delta 9 and things where you get from a gas station that, again, he's doing that. He's continually under the influence. That's what led to the parties not being able to live together, and together is that he doesn't work consistently, doesn't maintain employment, doesn't contribute to the family when they were together. He used Miss Wheatley. She's invited him out of the country to go celebrate the child's birthday. She's paid for his trips to go. And he's just upset that he's not a kept man at this point in time, I think, is the whole issue. But she's been the one that's primarily cared for the child. She's been the one that's been solely financially responsible for the child. She's provided a stable home and commitment. We're not denying that he's the father, but we do think at this point in time in the child's life, an alternate weekend schedule is sufficient for him to have the child. Again, we don't know. We've not been provided any information about where he works and what his schedule is. And again, she has not unreasonably withheld visitation. She's given him additional time. This is one where family members have gotten involved in it. His mother and his sister take an active role. His sister has threatened physical harm against my client. The first issue when we went to go and exchange visitation, it was a family scenario where she felt attacked and was felt threatened. She sought assistance of law enforcement, and again, it was a scenario where she felt threatened, and she can address that when she's on the witness stand. But again, it's just a consistency argument, Your Honor. She's been the primary residential parent. She's been the caregiver. She does everything. She pays for everything. And it's just a situation where you just need to establish a parenting plan.
All right, Ms. Duke, you may call your first witness. You'll step around, raise your right hand, and be placed under oath.
Aiden Alexander Dean Hollis.
Officer Hollis, on April the 19th of 2024, were you dispatched to a call in?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I was dispatched to I believe it was a domestic at Walmart on the side where Murphy USA is. It's a gas station. I came into contact with, I may butcher this, but I believe it's Mr. Ray and Miss Wheatley, who claimed to be the mother of a child. They were there to conduct a child swap. At some point during the child swap, things got heated, and then the mother of the child did not express to me that she did not want to allow the father to take the child that day. We later learned that, and the same day, during my investigation, I learned that the mother and the father.
I'm sorry.
Did you hear it from the mother or the father?
Well, and let me rule on it. Number
Sorry.
one, if he's repeating what someone said other than one of the parties, then it would be hearsay. But if it's a statement made by one of the parties during the exchange, I'm not going to consider that to be hearsay. So we need to find out where the information came from.
The information you're about to provide, did you learn it from one of the parties?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so go ahead.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought. So
Take your time.
I thank you. I later learned that I don't know which parent it was, but is one of the two, had mentioned that there was an agreement made between them using their attorneys at court, and that I believe there was an agreement between their attorneys made on their behalf that they would conduct a child swap. I don't remember how often that was or when that was, but they said that there was an agreement made between their attorneys.
Okay. Did you understand that they were both in that parking lot to make the swap that day?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And tell me what happened after that.
They met at the parking lot to do the child swap, and the mother of the child went to grab the child out of the car. I believe the grandmother, which was Mr. Ray's mother, was recording the interaction. The mother of the child noticed that the grandmother was recording the interaction, and that upset her, and she believed that that was harassment, at which point she no longer allowed the child swap to take place. She put the child back in the car, and there was words said, I cannot recall that off the top of my head. She put the child back in the car, and then I believe it was at that point that I assumed that they called the police.
Not again. I'm going to object and ask that be stricken. This question is what happened. So I'm assuming he was talking on his own personal knowledge what happened. But now, as he finished his statement, he is saying, and he's using the word that grabbed and did this and did that. So I need, obviously, it's hearsay.
Well, yes, you can ask him a follow-up question before I rule.
Did you verify all of the information that you obtained from the two parties? Did you verify that information in your discussions with Mr. Ray and in your discussions with Ms. Wheatley?
I do not recall if I asked the same exact questions to both parties, but the information that they both gave me aligned to that.
Okay, and aligned to what you just testified to, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So continue to tell me what you, did you investigate the situation when you got there?
Yes, ma'am. The grandmother, Mr. Ray's mother, showed me the video on her cell phone of the interaction, and which is the same information that I just provided. And at the conclusion of all of this, as I do with every case, I always try to come to a reasonable and peaceful resolution. So I tried to talk to Miss Wheatley about the situation, and I tried to ask her if she would give the child to the father, as that was what I understood to be their agreement. And then she did not. She still didn't want to allow the child to go with the father.
Okay. And did you encourage her to allow the child to go with the father?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. And who was with Miss Wheatley on that day? Do you know who it was?
I was not sure of his name, but she had a male subject with her in the driver's seat of the vehicle.
Did
that
she
was-
describe her relationship with that male subject to you?
It was her boyfriend.
And was he reasonable on that day? Did you have any problems out of him?
I believe that we had a brief conversation, but I do not recall that conversation off the top of my head. But I did not have, there was no tension or anything between me and him.
And in reviewing that video, did you find anything that the grandmother did to be harassing in any form or fashion?
There was only one interaction, or one thing that she said. She said that there was a court order, and by both parties' own admission, that there was no court order in place at that point in time. She said, you know, it's a court order, you know. And that was the only thing that was maybe controversial, or I wouldn't say a threat, but I would say that that's the only thing that she said that might strike a nerve with somebody.
Okay. And was the video of the child being excited when she saw her dad?
Yes, ma'am. Initially, the child was excited.
Okay. And is that the reason that the grandmother gave you for taking the video?
Can you repeat that?
Is the child being excited, was that the reason the grandmother gave you for taking the video, not to be ugly with Miss Wheatley? I'll move on. I can have her testify to that.
Sustain the objection.
Did you find anything that Mr. Ray had done during that interaction to be harassing or intimidating, or anything that would lead you to believe that the mother should cancel this visit?
No, ma'am. There is nothing that I observed to be, you know, a danger to Miss Wheatley, to the child, to the grandmother, to the boyfriend of Miss Wheatley. I didn't observe anything that he or she did to be of reason to not allow the swap to continue.
And did the parties acknowledge that they had come to this agreement in court and were just waiting on the court order to be entered?
Yes, ma'am. That was my understanding.
When this happens in any other circumstances, do you encourage the parties to go by what the agreement is?
Yes, ma'am.
And in this case, Miss Wheatley did not. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see Miss Wheatley leave the parking lot with the child?
Yes, ma'am.
He did say that the parties told him what the agreement was, both parties.
I think that would be a matter of subject to cross-examination. I believe it was testified to that he was advised there was some sort of an agreement, but not a court order. And as a result of that, his observing whether they did or did not comply with the court order is a matter of opinion, but it would be his observation subject to cross-examination overruled.
Did you see Mr. Ray be upset or lose his mind or do anything on that date that would cause you concern for him to be with the child?
Oh, no, ma'am. I didn't observe him to be like of, you know, altered mental status or anything like that, or anything that would suggest that he wouldn't be capable of taking care of a small child. I did notice his behavior to change whenever he realized that he wasn't going to be able to keep his child or
Okay.
receive his child.
Was he upset reasonably?
Yes, ma'am. Well, what I would consider to be upset. Yes, ma'am.
What day did this occur?
I believe it was that April the 9th.
April the 19th, 2024, is that correct?
I believe.
It won't be entered, but I can show them.
I just wanted to know if the timing of it as opposed to the agreed order that was entered on April the 23rd from the April 4th hearing. So I'm just trying to get my timeline down. So
I don't think, again, I think it's appropriate we were in court.
turn your microphone on so since we are recording.
Okay. We were in court. We were going to get bumped. We agreed to an alternating weekend residential schedule, and and what date it was supposed to start. So again, there's not going to be a dispute on our part that The parties were to meet and exchange the child. What's in dispute are the events that happened when they met to exchange the child and what happened from that. And again, Ms. Duke contacted me, I contacted my client, and we ended up making an agreement to address that situation that went on. Yeah, but you contacted me, I've got the text messages, you text me, I called her, and we arranged to get them.
Not on that
No.
occasion. That was the next.
Okay.
Judge, if I may approach you.
You may.
Is that refresh your recollection of the day that it happened?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me what you're showing him, please?
On what day was it?
April 19th at 18:02 hours, which was translated to 6:30 or 6:02 p.m.
Subsequent to this incident, did Ms. Wheatley go down to the police department to try to file a claim against the grandmother?
I am not sure.
Is there anything else relevant to this matter that you feel is important for the court to know?
No, ma'am.
Were there video interactions of you with Ms. Wheatley and with Mr. Ray on that day?
Are you asking me?
Did you have cameras on?
Yes, ma'am. I had body cameras.
And were I may wait. I think we're good on that. You're good, Jennifer. I'll pass it to you.
You didn't see, excuse me, you didn't see what transpired before you arrived?
No, ma'am.
Didn't observe the body action or anything else to that effect of what was going on when they all got there? Were they, let me rephrase, were they all out of the vehicle when you got there?
Miss Wheatley, I believe, was in her vehicle. I know her boyfriend stayed in the vehicle the entire time once I got there. I'm speaking after I arrived. Miss Wheatley was in her vehicle, and then Mr. Ray and his mother, I want to say, were out of their vehicle.
The child was in what vehicle, Miss Wheatley's?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you check on the child?
I cannot recall.
Okay. Miss Wheatley told you she felt that she was being harassed,
Yes, ma'am.
and as a result of that, she didn't want to exchange the child, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You didn't witness anything after you got there, other than the grandmother saying something about there's a court order, correct? You didn't witness any harassment after you got there,
Oh, no, ma'am.
but you can't say what happened before you got
I wasn't there, no, ma'am.
there. Okay. And the only thing, this comment from the grandmother, the paternal grandmother, happened in your presence.
No, ma'am. That was on the video that she had shown me. I think it was on her phone.
Okay,
Or her
so,
son's phone. I'm not sure.
so was your testimony earlier on direct examination from your interview with the parties, or was it from viewing a video?
What I was testifying to was the video that I'm not sure of his mom's name. His mother showed me part of a video where she had said something to the effect of, "It's a court order, you know." That was on a video that she had provided, like showed me. But I was not there physically whenever that took place.
So was your testimony about what he said, she said, from what the parties told you, or what you saw on the video?
Oh, what I saw on the video.
What you saw on the video?
Yes, ma'am.
So when you said earlier, when I object to like a hearsay or things like that, you said, oh no, that's what the parties said. But they didn't tell you, you watched it on a video?
That's what they said on the video.
Did you interview the parties?
Yes, ma'am. I spoke
Okay.
to both of them.
Okay, so just taking within context of what they told you, not what you saw.
Mhm.
What was the source of your interview with Ms. Wheatley?
I'm not sure what you mean. What is my source? What is?
Well, I mean, the context. Hey, what is your name? Hi, my name is Catherine Wheatley. What's going on? We were coming here to exchange the kids, and I felt harassed. The grandmother got out, put a camera in my face, telling me blah, blah. That's what I'm asking.
Right, yeah.
So what was what's the context, what went on with the interview? Because your direct examination, understand what you were talking about, came from you said came from the interview with the parties.
Okay,
And now you're saying, no, it didn't come from an interview with the parties, it came from me watching a video.
right. That was my misunderstanding, I'm sorry. So our interaction, mine and Miss Wheatley's interaction wasn't anything uncommon for police to experience. She claimed that she was being harassed, and I explored every avenue possible to support her claim. I just couldn't see it being harassment or anything of that nature.
Okay. So what she gave you a description of what happened?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that's what I'm asking you. What did she tell you happened?
Okay, so thank you. So she asked me, or she explained to me that she was there to conduct a child swap, and that his mother got out recording her, and I don't remember specific words that she said, but she expressed to me that she felt that she was being harassed by the grandmother recording her during the child swap.
Didn't she state to you that she thought it was illegal to tape somebody without their permission?
She could have, but I do not recall that.
Okay. If she was, and again, if that's what she articulated to you and said, I asked them to quit taping and they refused, and she thought it was illegal to be taping without both parties' permission.
Okay,
If she was under that misconception,
Okay.
again, it's being a misconception.
okay,
But if she truly believes that, and it wasn't, and you weren't supposed to videotape somebody.
Right.
Would that have been deemed harassment? Would you think she would have been justified?
yeah, I'll agree with, yeah, I'll
Okay.
say yeah.
Again, like, you would agree with me, again, states are different, like with, if you if you record somebody, some states are two-party consent states. Tennessee happens to be a one-party consent state. Are you aware of that?
I'm not actually.
Okay.
That's
Well, again,
interesting.
we'll talk to the judges aware, but again, some states require two-party consent you're not aware of that?
I am now.
Okay, so if she was under that conception and somebody was videotaping her without her permission, you think you'd have been justified in saying, yeah, y'all quit it, you can't do that?
I wouldn't agree that it's harassment that I'm aware of. I don't know how that would be threatening, but
Well, yeah, sometimes things, if you're doing something, if you believe it's illegal, that might be threatening to some people. If you're committing a crime, might be threatening, wouldn't it?
I'm not really trying to play a game, but I mean, like, it would depend. Every situation is different, but in this scenario, I genuinely don't feel like it would be threatening. No.
Well, again, and I'm curious because, again, you're using words in your statements that you're making here today. You're talking about Mr. Wheatley, and we can go back and look at the transcript. Mr. Wheatley, who's the father of the child, and then Miss Wheatley, who claimed to be the mother of the child. Did you know you used that language?
Yes, ma'am.
Then why are you assuming of the male conduct is, oh, he is the father and she claims to be the mother? Why would you make such a charged statement?
Judge, that's argument. I'm gonna object on the ground that that argument is. I don't agree that that was the way the statement was made either.
We can read back the transcript and go back and watch, because that's,
He definitely wasn't charged. He's maintained his, professionalism.
Well, the officer is not the one on trial, but obviously both sides have the right to present their proof and to argue that some perception that the officer may have had at the scene may be skewed by his having paid more attention to one or the other. But what I guess we're trying to figure out is there some reason you would have necessarily have used the term that the mother who claimed to be the mother, or the person who claimed to be the mother, rather than she was the father, she was the mother and he was the father? Any reason for that?
No, sir, there's no reason. I think it was more so like I don't remember the exact words that were mentioned, but it was portrayed to me that she was the mother and he was the father.
You enjoy testifying in cases like that?
I sure don't, no, sir.
Sorry
But I'm happy to be here.
Okay. You don't have to
Oh,
be
you
happy
don't-
to be
you
here.
don't
You're
even
under-
have to
You're
say
under
that.
oath, so let's not retract that statement real quick.
You can say, I'm here to do my duty, but you don't have to say you're happy. So
I'm here to
if
do
you were
my-
happy to be here, you might be the only one in this courtroom who is happy to be here.
And again, officer, again, not to harass you any more than I've done already, but then you go on to say, and you use words in dealing with my client, Miss Wheatley, the mother, that she went and grabbed the child out of the car. Those were your direct statements. She went and grabbed the child out of the car. Why would you have used, again, what I would define as a charged statement that she grabbed this child out of the car when, number one, you weren't there to see it? And number,
I'm going to object as being misrepresentative of what he said. It was definitely not a charged statement when he said it, number one. And I don't know how else you get someone out of the car other than to grab them out of the car.
Well, it's the use of the word grab that I think that has a connotation. Obtain, take the child out of the car, that sort of thing. So
she
this
removed
is
the child out of the car.
This is cross-examination. We both know you're both fine lawyers. You're both going to try to ask the questions that you think are beneficial to proving your side of the case. Ms. Roberts has the right to ask the questions she wants. The idea of it being a charge statement, I'm the one who has to make the decision. I understand what's going on. The use of the word charge doesn't affect me one way or the other. I understand the point. She's simply trying to demonstrate that there might be some prejudice with this officer towards her client and in the manner in which he's describing it, or that maybe he's getting his information from one side of this scenario rather than the other, and therefore might be presenting a side of these events that is partial to one side or the other. So I understand what's going on. It is not affecting me that she's using the word charged. So you just have to trust me that I'm going to do what I think is the right thing. So overrule the objection.
So was there a reason you used the word grab the child out of the car?
I'm going to be honest and say that that's just me being Southern. I think that's a Southern thing to say. I think that's the best answer I can give.
And again, the reason I'm asking these questions, again, you would agree, I kind of made you uncomfortable by the words that I've said and reiterating the words that you've said.
I wouldn't say that I'm uncomfortable because of specifically you. I'm just uncomfortable in general.
Well, again, words set the tone of interaction between people, don't they?
Yes, ma'am.
So the fact that if this person is sitting here, this lady sitting here, and hears you say that she claims to be the mother and that she grabbed her daughter out of the car, you may not have meant it that way, but you can see where that would upset this lady, wouldn't you?
I understand what, yes, ma'am.
So when somebody goes in a contentious lawsuit about their child that they both love, and words are spoken, you would agree that it wouldn't be unusual for somebody using words like claimed and grabbed to feel like, oh, you've already taken sides, you might be, I feel harassed. Harassed is kind of a subjective statement, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
That's all. Thank you, officer.
Oh,
Did you have a body cam on that day?
Yes, ma'am.
And was there footage from an angle looking at you and another officer and Ms. Wheatley?
I don't recall the angles. I know that my patrol car has a camera, and I have a body camera, and the other officer, any officer that was there has a camera and a car camera.
Is this a copy of that?
It looks to be.
once you hit the light.
I'm gonna ask you some dumb questions.
145 Amber.
What's y'all's relationship?
that's my daughter's father and my daughter's brother.
Okay, all right. What did y'all meet here today for?
We have started recently voluntary visitation. This is the second time we try to do the exchange. The first time was fine. This time I showed up. He popped up with the car with his mom. His mom had the camera on, filming me and my daughter, getting super close to me and my daughter. I told her to back off. Do not film me. You don't have permission to film me and my daughter. She laughed and told me that she could do whatever she wanted. I grabbed my daughter. She got upset. Put her back in the car seat and told him that I wasn't going to proceed to the exchange.
Okay. All right. That kind of coincides with the video that they have over there. So I don't think that anything really criminally occurred today. Go ahead.
Well, this is just a recurrent of harassment behavior they have had in the past. So, like I told him that I would like to make a complaint of harassment on Mrs. Reed, because this is a recurring thing that she keeps doing. It's like she's trying to intimidate me, right? Which, in a matter that has nothing to do with her, because her son is the one, the father of my child, who has to be with me. I don't understand why she comes in the meeting and starts. It's like she's trying to get something out of me, and that's why I want to put a complaint of harassment to her, which I already put complaints of harassment on him because he drives around my house. This is definitely not amicable in their part. So it's like
You said it's definitely not
it's
what?
not like friendly. They're not trying to be friendly.
Oh yeah. They're not showing up to be like, hey, how you doing? They're showing up to talk about it. I got you.
Yeah.
All right. So break this down just a little bit, okay? I would encourage you guys. I'd encourage them. I encourage everybody in any kind of situation, unless it's just an extremely friendly relationship that you guys have as parents, right? I would encourage everybody to go to a child swap with two people. Obviously, and I mean this by no disrespect. That's grandma. I'm assuming you would technically be stepdad, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so like grandma over there, like that, she has a biological relation to her child, right? So like she doesn't have any say in what the child does or doesn't do or anything like that. But she does have she is related to the child, so like she has a connection there, right? So like it's reasonable for her to be here. It's reasonable for anybody. I would encourage you to record them, yes. And it's actually legal for them to record. It's legal for you to record anywhere that you're legally allowed to be. And I was going to step off into this next. I understand that you two are kind of in a custody battle right now in court, right? I would encourage you to play nice. Like, I'm not saying that by any stretch would you mean or did anything, but the fact that you saw him like recording, you can do it. By no stretch is it illegal. But I would just encourage you, like, if you want like things to go in your favor more important. I'm not saying that it wouldn't, but it definitely, like, if you show that to a jury, they're going to be like, wow, mom was like really upset just because they were recording. You know how many people how many people do you see at the airport whenever somebody gets back from the trip, they're like recording them, like some soldier that comes home, I haven't seen it.
It's not legal to do it when somebody's telling you to back off and stop recording.
No, it's legal.
No, it's not.
It's in the U.S. Constitution. It's what is it? Bill of Rights.
It's legal. You in a public place they can record you. Now, how close they get to your person, it's a different story.
Yeah, she was like literally right there by me.
But they can record just like they can record us. Y'all can record us right now. It wouldn't bother me. Yeah, in a public place, you can. So in the same way, you could record her next time. And I would actually suggest it if you're having issues.
Yeah, because that's the way
It's a smart thing because then it gives you your context, right, from your point of view. So yeah, it is legal.
I will agree in saying that it does come across as like aggressive in a way. You know, like if somebody's sitting there recording you, like it is like, why are you recording me? Like, do you not trust me? It's kind of offensive, right? Like if somebody's recording you, you would agree. I would assume you would agree because you got upset over there whenever they started recording you. It is kind of offensive whenever people start recording you. However, being offensive and actually being illegal are two different things.
I will have to talk to my lawyer about that though, because I believe we're not allowed to record children without the parents' permission.
How do you think you go to Walmart every time you go to Walmart? You think you're not recorded if you have your kid with you?
Yeah, but I do it for security reasons.
Well, that's what they're doing too. And I'm not trying to argue with you. And by all means, like I would encourage you to talk to your lawyer, but just for like tell you flat out like it's legal. Now, where it becomes illegal,
Sir, were you being aggressive in that moment with her?
I don't believe, personally, I wasn't trying to be. I'm sure that somebody somewhere could probably argue that I was, but I wasn't trying to be.
Okay, were
No, ma'am.
you
Judge, we'd be happy to stipulate that he acted in an appropriate manner and diffused the situation.
and did you,
All right, there's a stipulation that you acted in an appropriate manner to diffuse the situation. You might want to put that in your personnel file. So.
Say,
I'll get
I'm
it-
confused.
I'll get it written up for you. She
Yeah.
just gave you kudos back here, so. Did you, in any manner, use a charge statement for her to feel like you were harassing her?
No, ma'am.
Did you gather from your interview with the parents that the video was being done just for the sake of getting the child's reaction to seeing her dad?
That was the reasoning for Mr. Ray's grandma. That was their reasoning. Miss Wheatley believed that it was there for other reasons, not to instigate an argument, I'm assuming, or
And by and through your investigation, did you make a determination that that just simply wasn't the case?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you find what Mr. Ray and his mother did to be appropriate?
Yes, ma'am.
And officer, just like I asked you when I was cross-examining you, Miss Wheatley stated to you that she was under the belief that she was illegally being taped, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
For whatever reason, she believed that that she had the right to tell these people, don't record me, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And based on your viewing the video from the grandmother and yours, they refused, correct? You got a twitch in your eye?
Yeah, I got a hair or a piece of wood or
Sorry.
something in there. Yes, ma'am. Can you repeat your question?
So she believed that when she told them to stop, that they were violating her rights or the law by recording her, didn't she?
Yes, ma'am.
And
She
that
did
was the
believe
basis of why she felt she was being harassed, correct? Because she thought they were doing something illegal.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You informed her that that was not illegal.
Yes, ma'am.
She questioned that, said she's going to call me.
Mhm.
Okay. And you diffused the situation and left, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, when I was talking about the charged words, you were the ones on your direct examination saying that she claimed to be the mother and that she grabbed the child out of the car and some other things that you said on your direct examination. That wasn't in the video. That was here in court today, right? You didn't hear anybody say that. Nobody questioned whether she was the mother on site, did they? Mr. Ray or the grandmother didn't come up and said she's not really the mother, did they?
Nobody ever claimed
Okay.
Nobody went against
All right.
what was said.
All right. She was spoke in a not in a raised voice, or did she? Other than there was a lot of noise and stuff going around.
I don't recall from the video nor from my own memory her ever raising her voice or saying anything in a loud tone. However, she did come across condescending in my own opinion.
Okay. Kind of like me. That's all.
You can agree with that, officer.
Oh, that was meant in a condescending way.
Judge, I'd ask that we be allowed to release this witness.
All right, you may step down.
Yes,
Enjoy
sir.
the rest of your day and your weekend.
Yes, sir.
All right, call your next witness.
Rhonda K. Reed.
And Ms. Reed, can you tell me what your relationship is to, you tell me what you call her, because her name's Noelle, is that correct?
Her name is Noelle. We call her Ellie.
Okay. And how old is she?
2 will be 3 in January.
Okay. And did you have the occasion on April the 19th to escort your son to pick up the minor child?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you got there, did Miss Wheatley have someone with her also?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, did you conduct yourself in a manner that was appropriate on that date?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you record your interactions that day with Ms. Wheatley?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can you tell the court the purpose of you recording Ms. Wheatley on that date?
We have
I'm
not.
sorry, not Ms. Wheatley. Can you tell the court the purpose of recording on that date?
So we had not been able to see Ellie for a long time. She had withheld her from us, and it was the first time that I was getting to see her in a long time. So I was recording her, trying to record Ellie with her expressions when she got to see Colton and me, because she was very excited. So I was trying to record just Ellie.
Okay. Were you doing this to harass Ms. Wheatley?
No, ma'am. Even on my video, I was trying to keep her out of the video because I just wanted Ellie. I was trying to get her expression of excitement of getting to see us.
And so if Ms. Wheatley says that you videoed her up in her face and got in her personal space, was that accurate?
No, ma'am. I was actually a good ways away from her. I was actually behind Colton. So I stood a distance away just so I could get Ellie.
Okay. Is this the start of that video?
Probably. Colton had walked around, and so I was trying to hurry up and get over there to get her initial expression. So that's probably the first, because there was a couple of videos.
Okay. Can you describe how the child reacted after, and I'm done, after the mother put the child back in the car?
She was very hysterical. She started crying. And we do have other videos of that too, but she was excited, as you saw, that we were there, but then she started crying and begging, actually reaching for Colton, and she still wouldn't let her go with us.
Those videos are short, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I am gonna go ahead and play those since they're short. At any point in time in that last video, were you anywhere close to Miss Wheatley?
No, ma'am. I still stayed behind Colton.
Okay, if she told the officer at the incident that you were in her personal space, would that be inaccurate?
Yes, ma'am. That's inaccurate. I was not in her space.
This is a court order.
I need you to get away from me.
You can't be it. Don't make me call the cops.
It is against my record. It is. It is an order now. And I moved.
Hey, are you serious?
Did she allow Mr. Ray to have the child on that date?
No, ma'am. And in the first video, she was pushing Colton and trying to tell us to quit video. And so I did quit video, and I actually even left and went back over to the car. But when I realized that she wasn't going to give over Ellie, then I went back and videoed again. But no, ma'am, she did not let us have Ellie that weekend.
Okay. And was that following the agreement that you would have her, that Mr. Ray, I'm sorry, would have her that weekend?
Yes, ma'am, that was after the agreement.
Did she give you any other excuse other than you videotaping as to why you could not have that child?
No, ma'am.
In your mind, did you act appropriately on that date?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, were you called, strike that, Judge. Tell me about Mr. Ray and his ability to parent.
He does a very good job. Yes,
Is he attentive to the child's needs?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is he currently stable in his employment and what he's doing?
Yes, ma'am.
Does he have a job that's flexible where he can pick up the child from daycare?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. To your knowledge, has Ms. Wheatley allowed him to do that?
She has not.
To your knowledge, has he repeatedly requested that?
Yes, ma'am, he has.
Has she given any reason like drugs or him yelling and screaming at her or any other
Your
reason?
Honor, again, I'm going to
No,
object
ma'am.
as to all of this line of questioning as unless she has heard the conversations. What Mrs., again, yes, if Mrs. Wheatley had made made comments that she's overhearing conversations or he's tape recording her and these are party opponent admissions, that's fine, but there's been no foundation as to how she knows what Mrs. Wheatley has done with her child unless she has to supervise everything, every conversation that her son has.
I can qualify, Judge.
All right, I will allow you to restate your question and try to establish a basis of knowledge.
Since Mr. Ray's visitation has been somewhat limited, is that the time that you actually get to see the child also?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you been exercising some of this visitation with him?
Yes, ma'am. When he gets her, I try to see Ellie also.
Okay. And during this time period, have you been witness to his attempts to get the minor child for additional time?
Yes, ma'am.
And has that additional time been denied?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, if I may have a minute with my client.
All right.
Anything in your mind that prevents Mr. Ray from being able to parent this minor child?
No, ma'am.
To your knowledge, prior to the filing of the petition, how much time was Mr. Ray exercising with this child?
He was getting her basically half the time until she chose to just stop letting him have the child at all.
Okay. And did that coincide with her getting a boyfriend?
To our knowledge, yes, ma'am, because she lived in my house, drove my vehicle. She moved out. The friend that is now the boyfriend is the one that came and moved her out of my house.
So she went from being in a relationship with Mr. Ray to immediately moving in with him? Was that your understanding?
I
Your
don't-
Honor, again, a basis of knowledge.
I said from her before you interrupted me. From her?
I'm sorry, what?
I said from her before she interrupted me. I was asking if that was her understanding from Miss Wheatley.
All right. If the question is actually about what Ms. Wheatley may have said to her, that would be a statement of a party opponent, so I will overrule any objection.
Is that your understanding she was moving in with the boyfriend?
I don't know that she was actually moving in with her boyfriend.
Okay. To your knowledge, is she living with the boyfriend now?
Everything appears to be, yes, ma'am.
I think that's all for this witness.
Any
How-
cross-examination, Ms. Roberts?
What is this, everything appears to be? Are you stalking Ms. Wheatley?
No, ma'am, not at all.
You have
and-
somebody following her?
No, ma'am,
Judge,
not
if
at
she
all.
can finish answering.
She did. No, not at all.
No, ma'am.
You're
She did
talking to
not.
time.
So, no, ma'am, no.
Just a second. Just let her answer the question fully before you begin answering the next.
My question was, are you stalking Ms. Wheatley?
No, ma'am.
So what is this, all things that appear?
Anytime Colton will ask about can he see Ellie, or can this happen, or can I talk to her, her response is, Charles and I don't feel that you can do this, or Charles and I do this, Charles and I. So it's always Charles and I is her response in
So you're
things.
listening in on these conversations?
No, ma'am, they're in text message.
Okay, so again, text message, you're not, what she says, as opposed, I'm old, and I apologize, I'm not on this stuff, so when you say she says, I'm assuming this is an oral communication,
Okay.
as opposed to a written communication. So if I interpreted it differently, because you were saying she says,
Gotcha. Yes,
so
ma'am.
in fact, did she type, she types, or she replies,
Yes, ma'am.
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Also, there was a morning that Colton picked Ellie up, 7:30 or 8 in the morning, and he was there at the house when he picked the child up.
She's a single woman.
Mhm.
So what does it matter if she has a boyfriend?
It doesn't matter. You asked me what I assume, so.
I'm just following what Ms. Duke
And I
said.
understand, I'm just answering the question that you were asking
Has
me.
your son gone on dates or have any other romantic relationships? when he and Miss Wheatley broke up?
I think he's been on a date.
Okay, so just a normal progression of single people. Where does your son live?
He lives at, we have a downstairs apartment at my house, and he lives in the downstairs apartment.
Oh, okay. You pay rent,
Yes, ma'am.
so it's a self-contained
Yes, ma'am.
apartment with a kitchen and a bathroom and all that?
It's a, I guess you would call it a utility, but it has a bathroom, bedroom, living room.
Kitchen
Exit.
facilities?
It does have some kitchen facilities, yes, ma'am. It
What are some kitchen facilities?
has a refrigerator and a hot oven, or a hot plate. Hot plate, yes, ma'am. Mhm.
And that's where he is with Ellie?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What does he do for a living?
He's an engineer,
An engineer, who does he work for?
BH Electronics.
And what hours does he work?
Approximately 7 to 3:30.
You work from home or leaves and goes?
He can do both, but he does leave and go to the office.
Okay. It's true that even all the way back in November, when they first started having issues and problems, Mrs. Wheatley texted you and said you can come over and visit Ellie, and you said, some of your replies are, sorry, got a busy week.
No, ma'am.
You sure about that?
Yes, ma'am.
You didn't ever text her back after she asked you, said if you could come see Ellie, that you were too busy, you had a busy week?
Let me back up. But I did go. I said, we do have a busy week, but I'm going to see what I can do, and I did go.
Okay, I didn't say you didn't apologize, but she has offered and you have been able to visit with the child up and until,
That one time, just that one time.
okay, all right. You were aware that your son had made an allegation that she was using drugs. Were you aware of that?
I'm sorry, what was the
Were
question?
you aware that your son made an allegation and asked that my client be submitted to drug testing? You recall that? If you don't, that's fine.
I don't recall.
Well, then we reciprocated immediately back in January, I believe it was, filed to ask that he do drug testing.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you familiar with the fact that he uses drugs in your home?
He does not use drugs in my home.
Are you familiar that it took him almost 3 full months before he submitted to a drug test? After he was requested to do one? Did you know that?
That he submitted a drug test or that he took one?
That he took one. We requested it like in January, and then he didn't take one until end of March.
Okay.
And it was hot. He was using illegal drugs.
Okay.
And you're aware that he has a habit of using at least cannabis, marijuana products, don't you?
Currently, no, ma'am, he does not. And you asked,
He has a history of doing that.
not necessarily a history of it. He has done that in the past.
Okay, and while Miss Ellie's been born?
I don't know that. I've never seen him do that.
Well, I mean, if he tested positive 3 weeks before this event happened, maybe 4, the end of March, he went and did a drug test and he was positive.
Okay. And they go back, what, 9 months? Can go up to 9 months, so,
Well, he was pretty, did you see the drug test?
no, ma'am.
Think it's appropriate for people who are using illegal drugs to do so?
Oh, no, ma'am.
That's all, thank you.
No follow-up.
Thank you, ma'am. You can step down.
No,
Sorry,
no,
next
you can
witness.
stay in the courtroom. Judge, I call Mr. Ray to the witness stand.
Ray, if you'll come forward, please raise your right hand, be placed under oath.
If you would, please state your name for the record.
Colton Dwayne Ray.
And Mr. Ray, do you have a minor child?
Yes, ma'am.
What is her name and age?
Noelle Ray, and she is 2, going on 3.
And when will she be 3?
January 26th.
And have you been in her life since her birth?
Since day 1, yes, ma'am.
Tell me what kind of visitation arrangement you and Miss Wheatley did with this minor child.
Well, we had it set up. It was kind of between the two of us. Sometimes I would get her Sunday night if it worked best for both of us. Sometimes I would get her Monday morning and keep her until either Wednesday night or Thursday morning. And then I would work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then again pick her up after I was done working Sunday or Monday morning.
And what did that equal out to parenting time-wise?
About 50%.
And at any point in time prior to the filing of the petition, did Ms. Wheatley lodge any complaints with you about smoking marijuana?
She said something about it one time, and then I didn't hear anything else until the last allegation.
Okay. And had she smoked marijuana also?
She has, yes, ma'am.
You understand she was able to pass her drug screen, but have you witnessed her smoking marijuana?
Yes, ma'am.
Since your child's birth?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, in April, we came to court and requested visitation. Do you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
And because the court could not get to you on that date, did we reach an agreement?
We did.
And was that agreement one where that you would have the child every other weekend?
Yes, ma'am. Every other weekend.
And did the order also provide that you would exchange the minor child at the Walmart gas station?
That's correct.
And did the order also provide that the parties will work together for the father to have additional time as the parties can agree, including when the child is in childcare and the father is available for visitation? Do you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
At any point in time since that April the 4th agreement, has she allowed you to have any additional time with the child?
So since that agreement, there was either 3 or 4 times, and all 3 or 4 times, one of them she had engagement photos and needed me to pick her up at 3 o'clock. One, she had a doctor's appointment, needed me to pick her up early. And one, she had like a chiropractor appointment and asked me to pick her up early, and I did on all 3 occasions. But it was only about an hour or 2 early on those extra times, and that was
And
it.
on one of those dates, she required you to return the child early also. Is that correct?
She asked if I would, but I told her, I don't mind picking her up early and getting a little extra time. I really don't, but I'm not going to give up any of my time that we agreed to.
Have you repeatedly asked her for times when you're available from getting off from work early or anything like that, and offered to coordinate picking the child up from childcare?
Absolutely. I've asked several times.
When you say several, have you asked by text messages on multiple times?
Yes, ma'am. I don't call her. I make sure that everything is put in writing.
And at any point in time, has she allowed you to pick the child up from childcare?
Oh, ma'am. She won't even tell me where she goes.
So she's not telling you even where the child is during the day?
She told me that it's none of my business unless the court forces her.
Okay. And is she telling you about the child's activities at daycare or anything like that? Have you been invited to like Daddy's Day Out or Donuts with Daddy?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Subsequent to the agreement, did you immediately send her a text message on April the 14th and ask if you could get her out the next day from daycare?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, were you off work and available to have her?
I was.
Okay. In any point in time when you've been turned down from having her extra, has she asserted that it's because you're on drugs?
No, ma'am.
Judge, if I may approach.
You may.
Can you tell the court what you said right here?
Can I please get Ellie out of daycare tomorrow around noon?
And what was her response?
No.
And on what date was that?
That was on Sunday, April 14th,
2024.
2024.
Okay, Judge, I submit that as the first one.
Exhibit 1.
Sorry.
When she's needed you to pick her up early, have you dropped everything to make sure you could get the child early?
Every single time.
Okay, have you denied picking her up early ever?
No, ma'am.
Have you had to adjust your work schedule here and there in order to pick her up early?
I have.
Has that same courtesy been extended to you?
No, ma'am.
On April the 23rd, did she request that you pick the child up at 5:30?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ask on or about that date about having her additional time?
I did.
During your communications with her, has she ever voiced a concern about your visitations with the child and how things have gone?
She has, yes, ma'am.
Okay, tell me what has she accused you of things, or tell me what they are.
One weekend after, it was actually the weekend that she tried to keep her from me, and I spoke with you, and I guess you got in touch with her lawyer, and her lawyer said, you should probably drop her off. The very weekend or that Sunday when I returned her, she told me that she smelled like marijuana.
She said that the child smelled like marijuana?
Yes, ma'am.
Had you smoked marijuana around her?
Not since last November, middle of last November of last year.
And when did she allow the child to go back with you the next weekend you were allowed visitation?
The next weekend after she tried to refuse, yes, ma'am, I did get her again.
You may.
She asked you to pick her up at 5:30?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and was that on April the 29th?
That's correct.
Did you ask her about having her early on Monday?
I did.
And what was her response?
She said, I prefer her daycare days aren't interrupted. It took several weeks for her to adjust to going steady. It's just not beneficial for her.
Okay, and then what was the response?
And then she said, I agreed to mutually agree on extra time, but not that part. I spoke to my lawyer and told her I want that adjusted.
Okay. At any point in time, has a motion been filed to adjust what that order said?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And what did she continue by saying?
She says, I don't mean to lecture you, but kids her age do better with a routine. She is learning and adjusting.
Okay. And then what did you offer to her if she didn't want you taking her out of childcare?
I said, okay, so when would that extra time be? Because I'm basically open to any time extra that I could have.
Okay, and what was her response?
I'll give it some thought and let you know. We wish you a good day.
And has she ever gotten back to you on that?
No, ma'am.
Judge, I'd submit this as the next.
Mark. Order.
Now, we've got a stack of text messages here. Are they all similar text messages wherein you're requesting additional visitation like the order provides?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and at any point in time, I've asked this question, I won't ask it again. Has she posted your business on Facebook?
Yes, ma'am, she has.
Okay, and
Your business meaning his professional business,
I'm sorry, Judge.
or the Southern expression that she's up in my business?
Has she made public what is going on in your custodial matter on Facebook?
Yes, ma'am, she has.
Okay. Do you find that to be proper?
No, ma'am, not at all.
Okay, have you done that?
Never.
Are you concerned about your child knowing that she's putting things out there on the internet about you?
Absolutely.
Does she refer to you as Daddy Colton?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And prior to boyfriend entering the picture, were you just Daddy?
I was always daddy.
Okay. And what is the boyfriend's name?
Charles.
You may.
Now, do you give her credit that she sent you school pictures?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you get an opportunity to purchase school pictures on your own?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Would you ask them before to require her to make sure you're allowed?
Absolutely.
Okay. On the back of that, did she write, what did the mother write?
To Daddy Colton from Ellie.
And have you heard the mother refer to Mr. White as Daddy Charles?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, scissors?
I'll get them later. I submit as an next marked exhibit this.
Well, Your Honor, again, I think we can substitute a copy of the back page of it, if the court would allow. I mean,
I will allow a photocopy.
I
to
think
be-
just put because again, the picture's not the thing, it's the back of it. So if we can just photocopy the back, is that all right, Ms. Duke?
That's fine with me. I'll photocopy it.
Right, we'll just substitute it,
Okay.
substitute, whatever I'm supposed to, hear
We
what I
will
mean, not what I
substitute a
say.
photocopy of the backside of the photograph that refers to him as Daddy Colton instead of, and return the original to him. That would be marked as the next exhibit 3.
Yes, Your Honor. At any point in time, has she told you what child care facility that the child is going to?
No, ma'am.
Have you requested that information?
Several times, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there any reason why she would not provide that to you?
I don't know her reason. She won't tell me why.
Yeah. This is mine.
That's not the same one. This is the one I was gonna do, the negative one.
Yeah, the one in August.
Yes.
Yeah, you want the positive one?
Let's keep it.
You're welcome.
May I approach Judge?
Yes.
Did you receive a motion in the mail from my office in mid-August
Yes, ma'am.
for drug testing?
Yes, ma'am.
And was it a full panel nail follicle that was being requested?
Yes, ma'am.
When you received that, did you schedule an appointment to have a nail follicle done?
I did.
Okay, and when did you have that nail follicle done?
This was on 8/22/24.
Okay, and what were the results of that nail follicle?
All negative.
Okay, Judge, I'd submit that as the next marked exhibit.
We have a copy of that was marked, that was submitted to the court. And I believe it was dated 8/30 of, drug test results were 8/30/24, is that correct?
Yes.
And we'll just, you want to mark this one as the,
Yes, that probably makes more sense.
mark that drug test result as the next exhibit in order.
When Miss Ray moved out of your home, did she tell you where she was going?
No, ma'am. She didn't tell me where she was going, where
Okay.
she was living.
Did you want to know where your daughter was going to be staying?
Absolutely.
Okay, was it in your mind, was it reasonable for you to know where your daughter was going to be staying?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, had you guys had any physical altercations that she should be scared of you and not tell you those things?
Physical altercations. There was one instance where she physically harmed me, but never from my end. No, ma'am.
Okay. Is there anything that you've done to her that would put her in fear to keep you from knowing where the child is during the day for childcare and where the child is laying her head down at night?
No, ma'am.
Since, tell the court, was the child born with your last name?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and since did she hold your child out to have that last name until you two separated?
I'm sorry.
Did she hold the child's name out to be Ray, the last name, until you separated?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Subsequent to separation, what has she done?
Everything that she puts our daughter's name on, she leaves off my last name. And even at the daycare, which she sent me, the only reason I know this is she sent a conversation between her and the daycare, but she marked out the daycare information where I couldn't see. But she sent it and they were referring to her as Noelle Barrera and did not put her last name on there.
So she's intentionally not telling you where the daycare is.
Oh, absolutely.
What was the purpose of the text message she sent you showing the child care text message?
Well, I picked up my daughter at 6 o'clock and we were going to my nephew's races, and I thought I heard my daughter say a cuss word, so I let her know that, we don't cuss in front of my daughter, and, I just wanted to make sure they weren't either. So she said, well, I'm going to see if she picked it up from daycare, and she was sending me a conversation that she had with the daycare, showing that that's not where she got it from.
Okay. And did she get that from your home?
Absolutely
Okay,
not.
do you know Mr. White well enough to know whether or not he's cussing in front of the child?
I do not know him well enough, no,
Okay.
ma'am.
Has Miss Wheatley ever introduced you to Mr. White?
I had to introduce myself.
Have you been cordial with him?
Absolutely.
Since the agreed order went down, has she done anything to add you to the pickup list at daycare that you know of?
No, ma'am.
Are you asking this court to require that she add you to the pickup list?
Please.
Has she done anything to provide you with a health insurance card in case the child has a health care emergency?
No, ma'am.
Are you asking that that the court require the mother to instruct the child regarding who the actual daddy is to this child?
Yes,
Keep her
ma'am.
from being confused.
Yes, please.
Tell the court, your mom said it already, but tell the court what your work schedule is and how it's flexible.
I can go in from 7 to 3:30, to as late as 8 to 4:30. And I'm able to work from home if need be, if I have things that I need to do. I have quite a few off days. I believe it's 15 sick days and paid holidays to take off. And then, of course, if there's any kind of appointment, I can just go do that and then come to work when I'm finished.
Are you asking the court at minimum to award you a 50-50 schedule with the child?
Absolutely, I want my time back.
Are you in a position to have the child
Your
taken?
Honor, again, I know a lot of this is foundational. I haven't been objecting, but I'm going to have to object to the continued leading of Ms. Duke.
Dang, don't leave the witness.
Tell the court what your plans are regarding childcare, if you have to work, if the court awards that to you.
Oh, as far as, my plan is to take her to daycare every morning. And if she's sick, I can stay home with her. But I do feel like, she needs to go to daycare for social reasons. But yeah, I definitely can do anything that I need to do. I can take her to daycare, I can pick her up from daycare. Like I said, stay home when she's sick and still be able to work.
And to your knowledge, are Mrs. Wheatley's work hours similar to yours?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you always available to the child if need be?
Absolutely.
Tell the court a little bit about what you do,
I'm an electrical engineer at BH Electronics.
okay? And how much are you earning there?
52,000.
Okay. Are you asking this court to, also to set child support in accordance with the guidelines once we get a parenting plan scheduled?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You understand you may owe some back child support? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you okay with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you carry health insurance on, you don't carry the health insurance on the minor child, correct?
Correct.
Are you paying any of the child care right now?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Had the mother provided the child care facility name to you, would you have been trying to help with that?
Absolutely.
To your knowledge, how much is Miss Wheatley earning?
Based on when we were still together, if she's earning the same amount, I would say between 85 to 90.
And what does she do?
She's a telehealth nurse. She signs people up for a telehealth program.
And does she carry health insurance on the child?
As far as I know, she was on TennCare for the longest time. She may have had her put on her own insurance by now.
If Miss Wheatley cannot get her on insurance, are you capable of putting her on your insurance?
I just got insurance offered when open enrollment started this past week, so yes, ma'am, I am.
And if the court orders you to put her on health insurance, do you have any problem with that?
Not a problem at all.
Tell the court, we didn't fill this date in earlier, but what was the date of your separation from Miss Wheatley?
I know that we officially parted ways. I believe it was May 8th when I moved into my apartment of 2023.
And between May of 2023 and the date that this petition was filed, what was your visitation schedule?
I had 50%. Like I said, it was usually 3.5 to 4 days for me and 3.5 to 4 days for her, up until November 4th. And that was the last time she let her come stay with me and told me that if I wanted to see her again, that I would have to take her to court.
Did she provide you with a reason at that time?
At that time, no, ma'am.
Has she ever provided you with a reason?
She gives a different reason just about every time you ask.
To your knowledge, has she allowed Mr. Charles White to keep your child by himself? Only to your knowledge, if you know it.
I don't know enough about their life to know if he's had her by himself.
Are there any other concerns for the court today that you'd like to express?
No, ma'am.
Ms. Roberts?
So, Mr. Colton, what is the name of your employer?
BH Electronics,
BH Electronics, who owns that company?
Patrick Industries.
Patrick Industries?
Yes, ma'am.
BH, did you bring a paycheck stub today?
No, ma'am.
You can mark that as a late filed exhibit, Judge. I
You,
don't mind to send
you
that.
understood we were here to establish a parenting plan and child support.
I
Did you know that?
I have no idea. I mean, this
How long?
is my
I'll move on. I'll move on. I'll move on. How long have you worked for this BH Industries?
BH Electronics.
BH Electronics?
Yes, ma'am. Since February 12th, I believe it was, of this year.
February 12th of 2024?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is your gross, are you on salary or hourly? I mean, you're an electrical engineer.
I'm salary.
Only at 52,000 are you?
And technically, we're shutting down for 2 weeks, Thanksgiving and Christmas. 1 week at Thanksgiving, 1 week at Christmas. I'm on 1,000 per week, so it would, I guess, really be 50,000 even
So you just get paid $1,000 a week as an electrical engineer?
on salary. Yes, ma'am.
Where do you have your degree from?
I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said you were an electrical engineer.
I am.
What is your educational background?
I have about 2 to 2.5 years of college.
Okay, so you're not a licensed electrical, or,
Correct.
okay. And you've had that since February of this year. Prior to that, what did you do?
I did Uber, Lyft, and Uber Eats for about 4.5 years.
4.5 years you were an Uber driver,
Yes,
making
ma'am.
how much?
About 60.
About 60?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That was net.
And what hours did you have between those?
The weekly hours?
Yeah.
Oh, I worked quite a bit. I was trying to, because she wasn't working, so I was trying to make up for that and work as much as I possibly could.
So you did that up until February of this year, of 2024?
Yes, ma'am, a little bit, maybe halfway through January, maybe.
So,
Maybe. I was trying to move and get all my stuff.
so Ellie will be 3 in January?
Yes, ma'am.
So were you and she living together when when y'all conceived Ellie?
Yes, ma'am.
Where were y'all?
Or wait,
living?
when we conceived? I'm
Yeah, when
sorry.
you conceived,
Oh, no, ma'am. She was I was in Dixon. She was in Paris,
in
Tennessee.
Paris, Tennessee, living and working in Paris, Tennessee, correct?
Well, she worked outside of Paris, Tennessee, but yes, that's where she lived.
It had an apartment or a house?
She lived with her ex-husband's ex-wife's mother.
Okay. And then y'all started dating she became pregnant, and then were y'all living together at the time that Ellie was born?
When Ellie was born, yes, ma'am, we were living together.
Where?
And in my mother's house.
In your mother's basement?
And-
Is that the only place you've lived, in your mother's basement?
No, ma'am.
So did you move somewhere else to move into your mother's basement?
Move somewhere else to
Yeah,
move
I mean,
in?
excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm asking dysfunctional questions, I apologize. When did you first move into your mom's basement? When did you move there?
No, we moved there in 1997.
And so you've lived there from 1997 in your mother's basement?
No, ma'am, you asked when I first moved there.
When, as an adult, did you live somewhere else other than your mother's
Oh,
basement?
yes, ma'am.
Where?
I lived in an apartment in Nashville.
In Nashville?
Yes, ma'am.
And how long did you live in an apartment in Nashville?
It was about, I think, maybe 10 months or so.
And how old are you?
34.
You're 34.
Yes, ma'am.
And so for 10 months, you lived in an apartment in Nashville?
Yes,
You
ma'am.
moved back into your mother's basement?
Correct.
Okay, so for most of your life, other than for 10 months out of the 34 years you've been here, you've lived with your parents, your mother.
That's incorrect.
As your adult life, you've lived solely with your parents other than that 10 months?
No,
Where else did you live?
I've had, so I mean, where do you want me to begin? Like from 18 up?
Well,
Or-
from the time frame that you and Mrs. Wheatley were together, were you
Okay.
living in the basement
So-
then?
So, no, ma'am, I had my own apartment. She refused to move into my apartment.
Where was your apartment?
It was in Burns.
In Burns?
Yes, ma'am.
Not familiar with a lot of apartment houses in Burns. Where in Burns? Give me the address.
Bishop Lane?
Bishop Lane, was it an apartment in another house?
No, ma'am.
Apartment complex?
It was an apartment complex.
Okay, on Bishop Lane in Burns?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you were living there by yourself?
Correct.
Okay. And y'all were dating?
Correct.
She's in Paris, you're here.
Correct.
Finds out she's pregnant,
Correct.
and then y'all were gonna move in together.
She was living in Paris. She was having a hard time going to the hospital every couple nights. She would call me at about 10 o'clock at night. And I would drive all the way from from Burns to Paris to take her to the hospital. End up staying till 4 or 5 in the morning and having to leave to get back to work on time. And I did that several times, and I told her, I'd like you to move to Dixon so you could be closer and I can take you immediately if you need to go to the hospital and be closer watch of you. She refused to move into my apartment with me, said she didn't like it, and that she wanted to move into my parents' basement because she would like to have my family surrounding us.
Okay, and so that's when you moved back in and have lived there since 2022. When was Ellie born?
2022.
Yeah. So before y'all gave birth, or I guess y'all would have moved in, her birth date is in January of 2022, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So y'all would have moved in sometime in 2021?
Yes, ma'am. I believe it was mid-September, end of September.
Mid-September. Okay, and y'all lived there until, you said y'all lived there together until?
Until May 8th of 23?
And that's when she moved out?
No, ma'am. She refused to move out and told me that I needed to leave.
Okay, so you moved out and she stayed at your mother's house?
That's correct.
Okay, and how long did she stay in your mother's house?
Until I think it was September or October of 23.
Okay, do you know where she moved then?
I know now, I didn't know then, no, ma'am.
Well, where did she move?
I forget the name of Hickory Run.
Okay,
Is it right?
in Dixon?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were present at the hospital? You signed an affidavit of paternity?
Absolutely.
And y'all lived together from like January to May, January of 2022 to May of 2023?
That sounds
right?
correct, yes, ma'am.
And did you were doing only Uber driving at that point in time?
Uber, Lyft, and Uber Eats, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and she had a very difficult pregnancy, is that right?
From what she stated, yes, ma'am.
Well, and she wasn't working during that period of time?
She quit her job about 2 or 3 months before she had the baby, and for about another 2 or 3 months after she had the baby.
And then she went back to work?
That's correct.
Okay. Were y'all paying rent to your mother?
Yes, ma'am.
And so you have checks and your mother claimed that on her taxes?
I have no idea.
Well, again, if she was renting, you wrote her a check and there's going to be some type of a receipt and something that you can show that you paid rent, right?
I mean, it's my mom, so she's not gonna say I didn't pay rent. I don't ask for receipts from her.
Well, again, Mr. Ray, this is about whether or not how you supported your child from the date of birth. Is why I'm asking these questions, not to implicate that there's some IRS
Oh, no,
issue or things like that. So again, you wrote a check or gave your mother cash each month from January of 2022 to provide a home for your child. Is that your testimony?
Yes,
under
ma'am.
oath here today?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And is that all you paid, or did y'all have to pay utilities or do anything to that effect?
No, ma'am, that covered everything.
And then, who was instrumental about getting health insurance on your child?
We had healthcare, was it TennCare, I believe?
Did you sign up for TennCare or did she sign up for TennCare?
I'm the one that told her about it, but I mean, she has to sign up for
Okay,
TennCare.
you weren't married to her, so you weren't eligible to get TennCare.
Correct.
She, as a pregnant woman, was eligible to get TennCare, and then your daughter received it at the time that she
Correct.
was born. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then after that, you've never gone out and attempted to get health insurance?
Well, through Uber, it was never offered. Like I said, I knew that she was on TennCare, and I knew
Well,
that
you
she
were
had
working
health
at
insurance.
Uber, so, I mean, you were
Correct.
just driving Uber, so you were an independent contractor. You weren't an employee of Uber.
Exactly.
You got you get a 1099 from Uber, or
I
do you get
did.
a W-2?
No, it was 1099.
Okay. So again, as an independent contractor, you didn't ever go out and go, say, down here to Farm Bureau or any place and try to get insurance on your child or sign up on the marketplace or anything?
No, ma'am, because she was covered.
Okay. And then you moved out, I think, May, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so did you continue to pay your mother rent for May, June, July, August, while she was living there?
After I moved out?
Uh-huh.
No, ma'am. Once I moved out, we had an agreement between the two of us,
Who had an agreement about what?
Catherine and I,
Okay, about what?
so I told her that I was going to stay at the house. She wanted me to leave. I didn't feel that was right with her staying at my mother's house without me. She told me that I wouldn't have to pay her anything. And, as long as I moved out and took on the bills of moving somewhere else by myself.
So Catherine told you wouldn't have to pay her anything
Correct.
if you let her stay in your mother's home.
Correct.
Was your mother in this conversation? Because your mother was the one getting rent from you.
Right. She would be taking over the rent, clearly, because she's living there.
Okay, so you don't know whether or not she continued to pay rent, but
I have no idea.
and then you didn't give her any money after you left.
Correct.
And she had started working by that time, correct?
May of 23. Yes, ma'am.
And then you were saying y'all had a joint schedule at that point in time where you provided, where were you staying with Ellie?
I was in Nashville in my apartment.
Okay, so you would carry Ellie up there?
I would meet her at the Burns exit.
Well, but where you would spend the time with Ellie, and you were providing food and clothing for Ellie when you had her, and she was providing food and clothing when she
Correct.
had her? Did she have to send diapers with you or wipes, or did you provide those?
No, ma'am. My mom pretty much she made sure that we always had diapers and wipes.
Okay, so you didn't have to spend those?
For
Ellie.
once I moved out.
Yeah, I'm talking about when you moved out.
Yes, once I moved out, my mom did her best to provide for both of us.
Okay. But you didn't give Miss Wheatley any money?
For diapers?
Or anything?
Or in general?
Food, money, anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And then she took over the obligation to pay your mother?
Yes, ma'am.
Then she moved out,
Correct.
and you moved back in
Correct.
at some point. And when she moved out and you moved back in, how much money have you paid her in the over year, and let's say May to May is 12, and then June, July, August, September, October, and here we are in November. So 17 months, how much child support have you provided to Miss Ellie?
How much child support?
Uh-huh.
Well, for about 6 or 7 months, I didn't even get to see her.
Okay, well, I didn't think I asked that yet.
Oh, okay.
I was talking about finances, so
Okay.
let's stay on point.
Okay. What was your question?
I
I'm
asked you
sorry.
about how much money, how much support have you provided for your daughter Ellie in the past 17 months?
I haven't given Catherine any money.
None.
No.
Have you contacted her, and do you know whether your daughter's still on TennCare?
She doesn't give me any of that information.
Okay, and I understand if you don't know whether she's covered her under her health insurance or not.
Yeah, she refuses to tell me that type of information.
And you haven't gone out and gotten private health insurance on her.
I got offered during open enrollment, which was on the 28th, I believe,
Okay,
through this job that I have now.
so that would have been about did you have to wait 6 months before you got it, or you got hired before open
I
enrollment?
got hired in
started?
February and open enrollment started October 28th.
Okay. And what kind of insurance is it?
Like health insurance.
Yeah, what kind do they have? Do they have Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield? Do they have
There's Cigna,
Have,
Aetna, I think that's the only two that I saw.
HMO, PPO?
PPOs.
What's the copay?
I haven't, there's several different ones to choose from.
Okay, but you haven't started that process yet.
I just haven't gotten to select one yet.
Okay. Have you offered money and Ms. Wheatley refused it? Have you offered to say, hey, Catherine, here's a check for $500 to help out with Ellie? And she says, absolutely not, I'm not taking your money.
No, ma'am.
Okay, you just never offered, have you?
Correct.
Okay. You know, Ms. Duke entered in a negative drug screen and said that you understood that a motion was filed, and then when you got it from your office, you went and did a drug test. You understand that you got the motion that was filed, I think, January 5th of 2024 to do a drug test? And you got a copy of it, and it took you over almost 3 months before you went and got one, didn't you? You didn't get one until the middle to the end of March.
It was my understanding that it needed to be done before the next court date, so.
Okay, well, you understand when you raised the issue about Ms. Wheatley using substances, she immediately went and did a drug test and provided your attorney a negative
Okay,
drug screen.
okay.
And then we reciprocated and said, okay, if you want to see ours, we want to see yours. And so you asked for one, we did it, we asked for one, and it took you almost 3 months to get one. And you know what the results were?
On the first one? I do know what the results were.
And what were they?
Positive for THC.
For THC.
Yes, ma'am.
And your testimony that you hadn't smoked around your daughter since November of last year.
Wait, that's not what I said.
Yeah, it was. Ms. Duke
no.
asked you, and
I've never
that's
smoked
why I'm
around
asking to
my daughter.
clarify. Let me finish my
I
question.
thought you asked a question.
Ms. Duke asked you, there was a question that came up, and she said that you returned the child, and Ms. Wheatley said she smelled like marijuana. And Ms. Duke asked you, when was the last time you smoked around your child? I don't think you heard her full question, because you said, I haven't smoked around her since November. And I think you haven't smoked since November, right?
I did not say I haven't smoked around her.
Well, we can go back and look at the
I
transcript.
would like to, because that's not what I
And I'm
said.
clarifying that for you right now.
Okay, well, I'm trying to help clarify, because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't say I ever smoked around my daughter,
Well,
because I never have,
okay.
ever.
But you smoked.
I just don't want that to be on record or on YouTube.
Well,
I've never smoked in front of my daughter.
that's why I'm clarifying it now,
Okay,
because I
thank
didn't
you.
think you understood, I don't think you understood how it came across. So
Thank-
that's why I'm bringing it up.
Thank you for clarifying. I
Okay.
appreciate that.
You was the last time you smoked marijuana in November of 2023? Is that your
Correct.
testimony?
Yes, ma'am.
And so last time you smoked it, and again, I want to clarify, is that the illegal form of marijuana or this THC gas station stuff?
It was from, not a gas station, but a vape shop.
A vape shop? Okay.
Correct.
And so the last time you did that was in November?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you were still positive in March. So you were a pretty frequent user then, weren't you?
It was just here and there.
But for it to be built up in your system to the point of the last time you hit something like that was in November of 2023. And then we filed it previously with the court, but I have a positive drug screen that you took in March. I think it might have been the 1st of March, March 8th. You were still positive.
Judge, I'm going to object to asked and answered. I mean, I think this is the third time she's asked that question, and it's all been the same answer.
Well, I think
I'll
it's a legitimate inquiry into the situation. Is not this court's understanding that marijuana would remain in the system for the length of time from when he says he last smoked in November to the date of this drug screen, which was taken on March the 12th of 2024, or actually collected on March the 8th.
March the 8th, and then
But
I
it
think
was
it's a
a-
legitimate area of inquiry and overruling the objection.
Judge, is that a nail follicle that you're referring to right
I
now?
don't know, you can look at it, it was.
May I approach?
it's the test we asked to do.
This would be a good time while you're looking, we'll take a recess, and then I want to see Ms. Spooky, Ms. Rock.
All rise.
Off about the fact of the length of time when you testified under oath with your attorney that the last time that you smoked marijuana was in November, and then you tested positive in March. And so you were a very heavy drug user for it to stay in your system for that length of time. Isn't that true?
Are you asking me if I was a very heavy drug user? No, ma'am.
Do you offer an explanation if you didn't use illegal substances, you didn't smoke marijuana in November, and why it would still be in your system pretty significantly in March?
From what I understand on body hair, it goes back up to a year, regardless of how much.
That's what you're understanding.
That was what the lady that took my drug test told me,
And
that
again,
administered it.
you ask, and again, Michael, it'll be disputed, but again, you said that you've seen her smoking marijuana, but that she had said something to you about it. She wanted you not to do it, didn't she? She objected to it.
She was back and forth. She actually bought some in Peru whenever we went.
Okay. Bought it for you?
For us, yes, ma'am.
And when did you supposedly see her smoke marijuana in Peru?
Like what date?
Yeah, exactly. What date?
Let's see. I don't remember when the last time we went.
And, well, on those times that y'all went, you paid zero. She bought the plane ticket, she provided everything. Correct?
No, that's not true.
So you got documentary proof to show that you paid for any of your trips out of the country with her?
I have statements on my bank. Yes, ma'am.
So what plane tickets did you buy?
So she sent me $1,000 from whenever we split the money from Ellie. I let her claim Ellie on her taxes,
Okay.
and she said she got back
If he
$2,000.
can finish.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what he,
interrupts.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Restart the whole thing.
Yeah, play, you got $1,000 when?
So I let her claim Ellie on her taxes, and she said she got 2,000 back, and we split that, and she gave me $1,000.
And what year was that?
That was 2022, at the end of 2022.
So you let her claim Elliot?
Right, we were discussing who was going to claim her.
Okay, well, you didn't let her do anything.
I'm gonna
Is that a
object.
question?
That's
Uh-huh.
argumentative.
How did, but what,
Sustained, the question is argumentative.
how did, was it an agreement?
Correct.
Okay, but that was the time in 2022 after she was born, that was when y'all were living in your mother's home.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
In 2023, so she sent you $1,000 that you used to take a trip on? Of her money that she got back on the tax refund?
Our money, yes, ma'am.
How much did you get back that year?
I got zero. I was
Did you file taxes?
1099.
Did you file taxes?
Of course.
And did you owe an obligation of,
I believe so. I don't remember how much.
we'll get that in discovery.
Okay.
Now, you say, and again, I want to make sure of your testimony, sir, because you said every time she signs Ellie up for anything, that you know that she signs her up only using her name as Barrera.
I did.
That's a misstatement,
Yeah,
Judge. That's
I
not
didn't
what
say
he
that.
said.
What did you say?
So are you objecting to?
I'm objecting, Judge, as to the misstatement of his testimony. That's not accurate.
Well, what was your testimony about knowing that she does not use her last name?
that everything that, like when she sends her with a tablet to the house or with a cup to the house, it has Noelle Barrera, but no Ray on it. And the same thing, what I said was at school, she goes by Noelle Barrera.
Well, have you, again, I know this is kind of, you don't know that, do you? You haven't, you don't know
That's what
where-
they called her in the message, yes,
You
ma'am.
don't know where the daycare is, and you don't know how she's been signed up, does she? You don't know what she filled out the paperwork, do you?
No, ma'am.
And again, to clarify, your daughter's name, is what?
Noelle Barrera Ray.
And Barrera Ray is her last name.
As far as I see on the birth certificate, Barrera is her middle name and Ray is her last name. I have a
So
copy.
you have the birth certificate, and that's what you're telling me here under oath that it shows?
Yes, ma'am.
It's not.
There's no dash in there, no, ma'am.
Well, but again, your testimony here under oath is her name is Ellie, middle name Barrera, last name Ray.
Yes, ma'am.
And you didn't bring any income information here today to show that, to illustrate what you're making.
Asked and answered, but we can supplement with a late filed exhibit.
What is,
Sustain the objection is asked and answered, and both sides will exchange all income information necessary to calculate child support. But until I make a determination on the schedule, which we have discussed is not going to be able to be done today,
Yes, sir.
then we're going to not be able to calculate the support until you see. But there will be an arrearage of child support resulting from his failure to pay anything up to now.
And again, my question was leading up to, you worked for Uber for January and some of February, correct?
No, ma'am. None of February. And like maybe the first week or two of January. And the rest of that, from that time I spent packing all my things and moving.
Packing all your things in February of 2024?
In the middle of January
Where did you move from January of 2024?
from Nashville,
Okay, that's when you relocated back to your mother's.
correct.
So you didn't work at all for 2 weeks?
Maybe 2 or 3 weeks,
So
maybe.
how much did you make from Uber?
In this year,
Yeah, this
I would
year.
have to go back and look. I mean, it was, like I said, maybe a week or two worth of pay for this 2024.
We don't mind to provide that either.
Yeah, I'll provide that.
And you work how many days a week from home?
As many as I need to or want to. Most of the time I go into the office 5 days a week.
So usually your custom and practice since you've been hired is you go to work every day at an office, correct? And where is that office located?
In White Bluff.
In White Bluff, and who is your immediate supervisor?
David Forrester.
What is the address?
70, I know it's Highway 70 East. I don't know the exact numbers.
All right, if I could have a moment, please.
All right.
Ms. Wheatley reminded me that, and again, I may have misinterpreted your testimony because you said for the past 4 years you worked as an Uber driver,
Correct.
doing either transporting people or food, right?
Correct.
But see, I thought for some reason, or we thought for some reason, that you worked at a car dealership.
I did for a couple months.
Where was that?
Where was it?
What
Nolan
car dealership did you work at?
Action Nissan?
Action Nissan.
Yes, ma'am.
I think if I'm familiar with that, that's in Nashville.
Yes, that's correct.
What street, where is it, downtown?
Nolansville?
Nolansville, all the way out in Nolansville.
No, well, not in Nolansville. It's on Nolansville Pike.
Nolansville Pike,
Correct.
okay.
At
And
the
what is-
intersection, Nolensville Pike and Thompson Lane.
Yes, sir.
Okay. When did you work there?
I'm trying to remember the dates.
Well, it would have had to be after you moved out in May, and you moved in May of 2023.
2023.
You moved out from your mama's. Were you working there then?
No, ma'am.
And then you moved to Nashville and got you an apartment.
Correct.
And then you moved out of that apartment in January of 2024. So May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January. This is within that 9-month period of time.
Judge,
At some point.
if it makes this, I don't mind for him to get all of his work records for Ms. Roberts if that takes care of this. That's not an issue, I don't.
Well, what the issue is he didn't testify truthfully, Judge. I asked him where he worked, and he said, oh, for the first 4+ years, I've been Uber driver, and he neglected to say that he had worked at another place. So it goes to his truthfulness and veracity, or the fact that he smoked enough marijuana that his brain doesn't remember.
No, that's not.
I apologize, that was
Ms.
inappropriate.
Roberts is entitled to cross-examine your client to the extent she deems to be appropriate, as long as it's relevant. And obviously, cross-examining someone about their credibility is relevant. Overruled.
So in that 9-month period of time, just again, less than a year ago, you don't remember when you worked there for 2 months?
Yeah, I really don't. I don't. It was maybe September to November.
Okay, what did you do for them?
Sold cars.
Sold cars?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, I tried to sell cars.
You tried to sell cars again. I don't want to assume anything, but most car people work like during the day.
Correct.
Every day, and most of them work Monday through Friday and sometimes on Saturday. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, when did you work for those 2 months?
It was 4 days a week and on Saturday, I think it was.
4 days during the week and on Saturdays?
Yes, ma'am.
So how would you have been keeping Ellie 50% of the time for that, at least those 2
Well,
months?
at that point, she had stopped letting me see
Okay,
Ellie
that's
while I
when
was
you was-
working there.
Okay, all right, so that wasn't during the time that you were doing PPP.
Maybe a week or two of that, but no, ma'am, not during a time.
So I mean,
we were
y'all
doing
lived
50/50.
together up till May of 2023, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So over a year of Ellie's life,
Correct.
year and a half of Ellie's life, y'all lived together, sharing parenting responsibilities at your mom's house. Then you've testified, you and your mom testified that you moved out in May and then y'all were doing 50/50. But that would have been for May, June, July, and August. For 4 months, y'all did 50/50, because then you started working at the Nissan place, and you had to work 4 days a week and every Saturday, right?
Yes, I had asked to put her in a daycare so I could keep her and be able to take her to daycare in the morning, pick her up in daycare after, so I could continue my days. She refused to let me put her in a daycare, said if I signed her up, she would take her out.
Not questioning that, but you
Oh.
said that you were having 50/50, but you weren't.
I did all the way up until then.
You did for June, July, and August.
We were 50/50 her entire life until then. That's what I'm saying.
Well, y'all lived together in the same house.
Yes.
And, I mean, did you just say, oh, it's your time, I'm not changing her diaper, it's your 50% of the time? Or did y'all just do it like people living together? Whoever had her changed her diaper, fed her, put her in the bath? Both cared for her, right?
Right.
When y'all were living together, you didn't segment time.
Right.
You only segmented the time after you moved out, right?
But one would assume that two people that are taking care of a child put in the same amount of effort, which is what we're doing.
Sometimes she
So
may
it's
do
50/50.
100%, you do 0, another time you may do 100%, she does 0.
Is that a question?
Well, isn't that true? I mean, if she's sick in bed, you're doing it all.
No, neither one of us ever did 0.
I'll move on.
Okay.
The fact of the matter is y'all separated sometime in May, and you did not have 50/50 after the separation. Only, if you did, it was only for a very few weeks, until you started at the car dealership, right?
That's not true, no, ma'am.
Well, when was it?
From May until around September.
Okay, and so it's your testimony here under oath that when I get your records, that you worked only at the car dealership for September and October. Is that
And
your
like I-
testimony?
Judge,
Like I
these
said,
are
I would-
compound questions also, like, I think she's trying to create some confusion here. They're compound questions, and she's going from one subject to the next and not being clear in her questioning.
Right.
Objection is to the form of the question as a compound question sustained, separate them into individual questions and then ask again.
Is it your testimony that you worked in September and October for 2 months for Action Nissan?
You asked me to,
Is that,
To
that's my
guess.
new question,
okay?
okay? Is it your testimony right now that you worked for Action Nissan in September of 2023 and October of 2023.
Judge, I'm gonna object as asked and answered because
I don't believe it's been clarified, Ms.
well,
Duke.
he said he
Overrule the
wasn't
objection.
sure.
Objection's overruled.
Okay, so I don't know exactly when I worked there. I don't know if it was September 1st to October 12th. I don't know. So I would actually rather just refer to my past documents from my work that I turned in for taxes.
You didn't bring those today.
Okay.
You're relying on what you're testifying today, sir.
I didn't know that y'all asked for those, or I would have them with me.
Well, you have testified, I'm just trying to clarify your testimony, sir.
All right, and that's,
You testified that you and she had a split 50-50 schedule
yes, we did.
the whole time,
Yes, we did.
up until she unilaterally decided to not let you have time. I was assuming, based on your previous testimony, that was sometime in November. Is that what you led us to believe
November
earlier?
4th was the last day
November
she
4th.
let her stay with me in
Okay.
Nashville, yes.
But, so from November 4th to January of 2022, when your daughter was born. Is that right? 22?
No, those dates are later.
I'm sorry, I've gotten you confused.
Yes,
That y'all had 50-50. For the first part of your daughter's life, y'all lived together, correct?
correct.
You moved out. And what period of time are you saying that you had her 3.5 to 4 days a week? What time period?
From the time that I moved out until the time that she stopped letting me see her.
Is that right?
Yes,
Okay. That's what I thought you testified to.
right.
But you neglected, when I asked you about your work, sir, you said you were an Uber driver.
I honestly,
You forgot, did you not?
yes, I forgot that I worked there because it was such a short period of time. And she refused to allow me to see the child continuously as we had been going.
And so I asked you, when is it that you, even though you didn't tell us, you forgot and didn't tell us full disclosure that you worked at another place where you worked 4 days, Monday through Friday, and every Saturday. So 5 days a week you were working. I asked you when that was, and you said you thought it was September and October.
I said I didn't know, and then you asked me to try to tell you a date, so I tried. But now
And
I
during
feel
that
like I'm
time-
trying to be caught in a lie, and I'm not trying to lie, so I
And
just,
during that period of time that you were working at the car dealership, you said she refused to let you have the child, correct?
Judge, his testimony was not that. His testimony was after a certain point in time of
Is
working.
there a legal basis for your standing up
There
and
is, it's the form
stating?
of the question. She's misstating what he said.
She's
Judge-
asking him what he said. He can either admit that's what he said or he can deny it, and then you on redirect have the right to then, rehabilitate the witness by asking him, the clarification questions. But it's not a basis for the objection to say that that's not what he said when she's asking him a question, is that what you said? And she's making the statement and saying, is that what you said or is that correct? So I am overruling your objection based on the fact that it's a proper method of cross-examination, and therefore you can address that when you redirect.
You have said now repeated times, November 4th was the last time that you got to see Ellen,
was the last time she let her stay with me in Nashville, correct?
to stay in Nashville. And again, I'm trying to clarify, is that when y'all stopped doing 50-50? Or did you stop doing 50-50 before then?
It was slightly before then.
Okay. Now that, again, you were seeing her, you just weren't seeing her 50% of the time. From what date to what date?
See, you're asking me to guess dates, and I can't guess dates. I
No,
don't.
sir,
I
I'm
don't
not
know.
asking you to guess, sir. You have come in here and you have made a very bold assertion saying that this woman has willfully kept your child from you, that you were doing 50-50 time up until November when she abruptly stopped letting you see the child. That's what your attorney said in opening. That's what is in the pleadings, and that's what you've testified to.
Judge, I don't think that's a question. I'm gonna object to the form.
Is there a question in your statement?
That's what is in those, that's what has been in your pleadings, correct?
Correct.
That's what your attorney said in opening argument, correct?
Correct.
And that's what you've testified to, correct?
Correct.
But in fact, you were not getting 50% of the time up to November. She had stopped letting you have time when you were working at the car dealership. You weren't spending 50-50 time, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Against my will, but yes.
I'm not saying you agreed to it.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
just saying you
I
had
thought you-
said,
okay.
you had said, I'm getting 50% of the time from the child's birth until she abruptly stopped in November. You stopped getting 50-50 way before November, didn't you?
Not way before.
You got
no.
visitation, you got contact, but not as much as you wanted.
It wasn't way before.
Well, we know it was at least 2 months.
No, objection. His statement.
It's a statement, not a question, Ms. Roberts. Just
Was
so
it
you-
2 months?
I don't know. I don't
You-
recall.
You said you worked for the car dealership for about 2 months.
Correct. I'm taking a guess.
You're guessing.
Correct.
You don't know.
Right. I would have to look at my taxes that I filed for that year to see exact dates.
That's all, Judge.
Thank you.
Redirect?
When you said she abruptly stopped, was that as to the 50-50?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And when you said that you worked at this car dealership, did you qualify to say, I'm not 100% sure what the dates were at the car dealership?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did you say that you maintained?
Objection to the leading.
Okay. Did you
Sustained.
did you maintain 50% during some of your time at the car dealership?
As much as possible, yes, ma'am.
Object, asked he answer the question, ask, he's,
I'm sorry.
What's that?
I'll move on, Judge, it's late,
It's always easier for me to make sure I'm understanding it when you turn your microphone on if you're going to object.
this one is on.
Normally I can hear you, but sometimes I can't pick you up late in the day.
I withdraw, I apologize, I withdraw it, let her finish.
Whatever the objection was is withdrawn, Ms. Duke.
Now, regarding the drug use, that was from a vape that you obtained legally, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the marijuana usage that you were discussing is when the two of you were together, is that correct?
Correct.
Did the drug testing facility say there was a difference?
Objection, hearsay.
Okay.
Sustained.
Was your hair long enough to test on your head when you got tested?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And did they remove a body hair, not a head hair?
Yes, ma'am. That was my only option.
Okay. And is there a difference in how far those go back?
Absolutely.
That's all.
Are you still vaping?
Nicotine, yes, ma'am.
You're not vaping, any type of THC that may be quote unquote legal,
Haven't touched anything THC since middle of November of last year,
including any Delta 9, anything like
including
that?
Delta 9, any of that.
Okay, do you vape around your daughter?
No, ma'am.
In the car?
No, ma'am.
Do you vape in the car when she's not there?
When she's not there?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you vape in the home when she's not there?
No, ma'am. In the garage downstairs.
Is that enclosed?
Is the garage enclosed? As long as the doors are closed.
Or do you go outside to vape, or you just go in the garage with it closed and vape, or do you just go out the garage door and do it?
I guess in the garage.
But with closed doors?
It's usually as I'm walking my dog out, and so the door comes open and we go
Okay.
outside.
All right, that's all, thank you, sir.
Anything further?
When you say vape just now, are you referring?
Turn your microphone on.
It is on. Are you referring to the nicotine vape, not the THC vape?
Yes, ma'am.
That's all.
Step down. I'm not even going to ask him if there's anything else. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to stop for the day. This is Friday at 4:20, or almost 4:20, and I've had a long week of court already. We have had a meeting just a little bit ago where I was explaining to the lawyers Clearly, we would not finish this case even if we went for another hour, in my opinion, so we're going to stop and put a pause on it and come back. I've given them out a date later in the month that they can finish their case, and we should be able to finish it. And I want to talk to you both about one thing. I mean, this is not the first rodeo that you two have had, and it is a situation where clearly my concern is going to be your daughter. I think that, number one, I would say this to you, Mr. Ray, that you got to make a decision in your life. I know you say you're not using marijuana any longer or whatever, but at some point you have to make a decision whether using some sort of controlled substance like that is, you don't need to say anything at this point. Whether it's more important to you to use controlled substance or something like that, or to see your daughter. Whether I agree or disagree with the marijuana laws in the state of Tennessee is not the issue. The issue is every time you use marijuana, you're committing a crime. You may not get caught, but you are committing a crime. And your drug test at the beginning of this outset verifies the fact that Ms. Barrera, Ms. Wheatley or Barrera Wheatley, had every right to be concerned about the fact that you might have been using a controlled substance. So just keep that in mind. And for you, Ms. Barrera Wheatley, I want you to think about one thing. I saw the video, and you know what impressed me about that? It's probably not something you noticed, but what impressed me about that was your daughter was sitting in her car seat, and as you were getting her out, she saw her father and her grandmother, and her face lit up, and she became very excited, very happy to see them. And then, because of that misunderstanding about the law, you decided to put her back in that child's hair, and I heard her crying at that point. So who suffered the most in that scenario? Not him, not you, not even the grandmother. Who suffered the most was your daughter. And that's where you two have got to start thinking about your daughter first. He is the father. He should be referred to by this child as daddy, not Daddy Colton. He should be daddy. I think it is important. If you have a new man in your life, as I told these folks, I had two wonderful stepchildren that they were very young when they came into my life. And they called me Mr. David. They didn't call me Daddy this or Daddy that. They called me Mr. David. And as a result of that, and they did that until they became adults, and to where that kind of became awkward. But there are ways around having to have a child call another father figure or a male figure in the family by daddy. So I think that's something you need to think about. The second thing is, he is as much a parent of this child as you are. He has every right to be included in this child's life. And I've told the lawyers that they need to expect that at the final hearing, I'm going to give you a say. I'm going to give you as long as you want to talk on the 19th of November when we come back. But I'm going to tell you right now that he has a right to know where his child goes to daycare. He has a right to be on the pickup list for that child to be able to be picked up from daycare. He has a right to know about medical care. He has a right to know all of these things. That's guaranteed in the parental rights statute in the state of Tennessee. So I'm just suggesting to you that you start thinking in those terms. We don't have any information that the man you're seeing now is a bad guy. Nothing I've heard says he's a bad guy. And he can be a positive influence for your daughter's life, but he can't replace the father. And so this idea of you and he, whatever his name is, Charles or whatever, have decided something, he has no say in this. It is you as the mother and him as the father who are going to have to parent this child, co-parent. The man in your life will have the ability to stand on the sideline and support you, but he does not have the right to make decisions about your daughter's life. So keep that in mind. Being a step parent or even a step, whatever he may be, is a difficult role to play because you have to support, but keep out of it. So I want you to understand that that's where this court is coming from, and I think it's very important for you to start thinking in those terms, because we'll come back and my decision will be based on what I think is the evidence and what is best for your child. You both have very good lawyers who clearly go to the ends of the earth, and I mean that, the ends of the earth, to prove a point. But sometimes that's counterproductive in trying to heal the problems that exist between the two of you. Whatever the problems were that ended in your relationship, you're going to have to set them aside and learn to live together and parent together. Because when your daughter is now, whatever age she is, but she's going to reach an age where she is going to become much more aware of the differences between you and the problems between you. And when that is manifested by you calling the police during an exchange, and I understand why you did it, and I understand that now the law has been explained to you. But when the police are called, and that's one of my pet peeves, people who involve police in the exchange or in some aspect of a case that's not warranted. I'm not saying don't call them if it's not warranted. But when you do that, your child sees the police come between mommy and daddy. And then that is a traumatizing, in my opinion, event anyway. So I think that under the circumstances, the best thing you can do is try to learn to put that aside. Put aside whatever animosity you have towards him. Put aside any animosity you have towards her. Stay away from the marijuana, and let's try to learn to put your daughter's best interest first, because you're going to have to co-parent for the next 16 years if she's 2 years. And then beyond that, because I say this, and these lawyers have heard me say it again, but I think it's beneficial to say it to you. Do you want to be involved in your daughter's life when she has a graduation from school? And when maybe you want to walk her down the aisle when she gets married? Do you want to be there when she has a child, your first grandchild? I can guarantee your mother can answer that question. But the fact is that if you have animosity towards her to the extent that you can't even speak to her or communicate with her, your daughter will pick up on that. And every major event in your daughter's life will be ruined because of that animosity. And that goes for you. Every major event, every Christmas, every holiday will be tense. It will be traumatizing to your daughter. Every major school event, graduation from school, graduation from college. If she wants to be like her mom and be a nurse, then she's going to have to go to higher education. But eventually she may want to get married and have children of her own. You want to be there and be involved in that, and you want to make it as pleasant as possible for your daughter, not traumatizing for her. Because I can tell you, there are children out there who have been traumatized by the fact that they can't even have a major event in their life without mommy and daddy arguing and fussing and cussing and carrying on. We're not to that point with y'all, but you should think about that and start putting that, your best interest of your daughter first. I think you both love your daughter. I think you both are good parents and have the ability to be good parents. But this marijuana stuff's going to have to stop, and we're going to have to stop excluding him from the child's life in that scenario. So having said all of that, we are going to adjourn this hearing and come back on November the 19th at 9 a.m. And I want to hear from you, because I think it's important for me to hear from you about your reasons on that day, okay? All right, we stand adjourned until that moment.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and comment your thoughts below. I want to hear what you think about this. As always, subscribe. Peace.